I too sensed that it was actual revolution. Being given this tool that had literal infinite possibilities.
We had people who just kept believing. And I mean, there's still people who just keep believing.
This was the most phenomenal personal computer that was available in the marketplace.
No one had the kind of power and performance that the Amiga computer had in 1985. No one.
We were a small company, you know, this ragtag team taking on IBM and Apple, and we were going to change the world. We were taking on the big guys.
You actually could do things that previously were either the province of science fiction or were something that only a company could possibly fund.
A computer from the future.
We were from the future. This was it.
They still develop software for it, they still develop hardware for it, so it's not fully dead either. It's still alive, it's still going.
We're now ready to introduce the Amiga 1X1000.
And here comes this thing that just demolishes what we think a home computer can do. It just completely changed everything.
How would I describe it?
I think it's fantastic.
Awesome.
It's going to skyrocket.
Only Amiga makes it possible.
Only Amiga makes it possible. Only Amiga makes it happen.
The Amiga was launched July 23rd, 1985 at the Lincoln Center in New York City.
It was rolled out in a deluxe fashion with a budget that was just breathtaking.
Everything that they did was done to the nines.
Some Hollywood event or something like that. It was so awesome. The rollout of our baby.
The Amiga was my baby. I had engineering tasks before that. I've had products after that. No, Amiga was it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What you are about to witness is the result of an effort of research and engineering that began in 1982 and which to date has consumed over 100 man-years of engineering talent. The Amiga computer. The Amiga computer is a true multitasking computer. On the right, a sorting application with variable fonts, graphics in the middle, and word processing at the bottom. Equally exciting is the sound generating capability of the machine. My favorite is the power cord.
It was an amazing cult-like event.
They had Deborah Harry, they had Andy Warhol. Oh my God, Andy Warhol.
Are you ready to paint me?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight to help assist Andy do his first computer portrait using the Amiga computer.
All this effort with this scrambling people putting together all these bits and pieces, hoping with bubble gum and baling wire that it'll hold together for the launch, for the demo at the launch.
What computers have you worked on before?
Oh, I've worked on anything. I've waited for this one.
Really?
Deborah Harry is posing for a picture that Andy Warhol is going to do, and Andy Warhol is using this fake little graphic craft thing that I put together for this demo, and he's dinking with this and he's dinking with that, and Jack Hager, one of our two artists, is standing next to Andy Warhol. And here's Warhol, and Jack is trying to guide him, okay, use this brush, use that, because Jack knows not only what works, but Jack also knows what's going to crash. Like, whatever you do, don't touch the flood fill, because the flood fill is going to crash for sure.
Oh, that looks very good.
So now we'll do the hair. So we'll go up to color.
Uh-huh.
And Warhol, without any control, he's clicking, he's drawing, he's clicking, and Jack's like, this and that, and Warhol goes and grabs for the flood fill, and Jack's like, well, you don't want to, and Warhol grabs the flood fill, and he clicks on the flood fill, and Jack's like, and the flood fill just worked. It was like this awesome, wonderful, amazing thing, and you could have heard us gasp out in the audience when he touched that button, but it worked.
You go like, okay, this is just not going to be a home computer like I thought. Or, even more accurately, how are you tricking me? Was just, really?
The Boeing demo had a bouncing ball that moved in front of a grid that was in the background.
In living color, on multiple screens, follow the bouncing ball.
So, for me, the Commodore Amiga will always be that damn bouncing ball. And I've never seen a sprite that big. You just see that bouncing ball, and that's pretty much it.
God, what a day that was. The Amiga launch was one of the high points of my life.
We've lived our dream and seen it come to life. Now it's your turn. What will you do with the Amiga computer?
I've been thinking about the market lately.
To understand where we kind of were with home computers by the mid-'80s, when the Commodore Amiga came out. Now, about that time, the big names are essentially Atari, IBM, Apple, Commodore.
Apple IICs were hot then. IBM PCs were still pretty clunky and big and monochrome green screens. Lotus 123 was the spreadsheet. Excel and Word weren't even invented yet.
At the time of the home computers in the early 1980s, there was certainly a much stronger brand sense. Atari and Commodore have been kind of riding their 8-bit computers for a while. Apple has introduced the Macintosh. Pretty cool, but it's a little expensive. That's about where we are. We've got about 4 or 5 big name companies going on. They've all got to bring to the table the next generation. They all knew this. They all knew they had to step it up. Steve Jobs was shuffled off on this project to make what became the Macintosh. They were like, okay, fine, go ahead and try. And he did.
Even though the original Macintosh was lower resolution than the Amiga and it was only black and white versus the Amiga color, they started that path and started getting the public used to thinking then that IBM solution was not the only way to do it and that you could do something better.
Atari comes out with the ST line, which is meant to be their next generation of computers. It's okay. Commodore goes out and gets the Amiga team.
And we felt that we had the box that was the real answer that the marketplace wanted. We even scoffed at Apple for what they were trying to do, because even though they were trying to be different and trying to get people to think in a different way, they still were living in this sort of limited world where it was black and white, and the operating system was extremely clumsy to use for doing games and entertainment. It was good for doing a lot of computery stuff, but we felt that the Amiga was what consumers really wanted.
Back in those days, the computers that were there weren't very good game-playing machines. I mean, you think back to what computing was in those days, you look at it today, none of us would accept a product like that. Computers were designed primarily as business machines.
We created the Amiga ostensibly to be a game system. We all believed it would be a very good game system, but the engineers of the company always knew that it was destined to be something more. A machine that was powerful enough to do the sort of home office stuff that you needed. But the Amiga at the same time was just a kick-butt game system. We ended up hoping that that would be the thing that would pull the Amiga all the way forward and have it achieve the success that we thought it should have.
You basically have Jay Miner, computer designer extraordinaire, and his team of engineers who are all top-notch. They had done work on the Atari 2600, and then they were moving on to the next level and coming up with a computer.
Well, it was in 1982. A friend of mine that I used to work with at Atari came to me and said, "Hey, Jay, let's start a new company. I'm tired of this one." And I said, "Well, fine." I said, "I'll do the chips for it, and I'll be the vice president if I can do the chips my way."
At the beginning, what Amiga was making was this little board that you sat on, and there was a surfing game that went with it. And that was the cover story. Underneath, we were building this new computer with chips and things.
I had left a very good job in Minneapolis and had made the commitment to come and work with Dave on this. I walk into the building down in Santa Clara, and I look at 5,000 square feet, and I look around and I'm going, "Dave, what in the hell are we going to do with all this space?" And he says, "Don't you worry about that." He says, "We're going to need all this space."
I came across Amiga while I was working at a different company, and with incredible ego and arrogance, I walked into the president's office, explained to him how great I would be and how much I could help him, and he threw me out. That was David Morse, probably the best man I've ever known. I felt really stupid about what I'd done and called him the next day and said, oh please, I really want to work on your stuff. Let me come back and try again. He said, okay, go to the lab guy. And I went to the lab guy and said, I'm here, let me do anything, what do you need? And I became the janitor at Amiga.
It was a startup, there was a lot of work to do. People just grabbed jobs that needed to get done and did those jobs. And we worked hard and long.
One day, I'm cleaning up around Glenn Keller's desk. He was one of the design engineers at Amiga.
My main role in the Amiga's development was designer of the audio chip. It was my first chip I had ever worked on.
I'm looking over his shoulder at what he's doing, and I'm suggesting, oh, that's interesting, but what if, blah, blah, blah. He looks at me like, well, okay, janitor, you're an engineer? Yeah, I'm an engineer. What in the world are you doing cleaning up the floors, he says. So in 2 years, I had then made it up to system architect for the Amiga computer. Amiga had gone through many of the funding issues that other companies go through. As things get close, more money needs to be spent, stuff goes wrong. If you run out of money, the company dies. If you try to get more money, you wind up selling everything. It's really awful. And someone else takes control, they don't have the spirit, they don't have the life, you get the wrong machine. We're running out of money.
Those were desperate days where we were afraid the business was going to have to close. We couldn't believe it was happening. We had this amazing piece of technology that we had created, this awesome new computer system that seemed unreal, that we could be this close to so much glory and fall short because we just didn't have the funds, but we didn't have the money. When we were almost out of dough and the company was in such a delicate territory, Jay was the guy that went out and took out a second mortgage on his home and used that money to infuse the company with more cash so that we could keep going, so that we could keep operating. And we had exhausted all of our other options and realized that if the company was going to stay afloat, that we would have to sell it to someone.
So we had made some deals with Atari.
They came and made a deal for $500,000. We get an offer from Tramiel, who is pissed that when he was at Commodore, he wanted to get us, couldn't, left Commodore, went to Atari, wanted to get us, couldn't. They were making the Atari ST. Many people don't understand why putting something in Tramiel's hands is a bad idea. Jack lived through the bad times of the war in the German prison camps, came out of that with the following philosophy. Business is war. If you're not crushing your opponent, you're doing it wrong. The correct thing to do is squeeze them till they're dead. Take anything you can. The details of the deal included that at a particular time, when we needed to pay it back, if we paid it back, fine. Then Amiga stays ours, no problem. If we can't pay it back, they get the rights to the Amiga.
And as time went on, it looked like we were going to run out of money. They were going to pick up all the intellectual property and run with it.
We were going to have to give Jack, Tramiel of Atari, the Amiga. Unacceptable, not okay. Dave Morse felt that that was unacceptable, not okay. He started negotiations with Commodore proper.
At the last minute, suddenly Commodore came in and bought us out with a much better deal.
And got us a gigantic price out of Commodore, more than that would have happened before. Commodore gives us $500,000 cash on the spot, and on the day that we have to give the secrets to Tramiel, Dave Morse hands him a check for $500,000 instead. Jack is furious. Jack's really angry about this. We are delighted.
It wasn't just a computer that you wanted to work on. It was a computer you stared at because you were like, I can't believe this is happening right here in front of me.
There wasn't a machine that could touch us.
This had multitasking. No one was doing multitasking. It had video graphics. No one was doing multimedia video graphics like the Amiga. The Macintoshes were black and white. IBMs were green screens. No one had the kind of power and performance that the Amiga computer had in 1985. No one.
The computer from the future.
You know, we were from the future. This was it.
When I was in college, I played some audio from the Amiga. The person I played it for, I remember him saying, no, this is not computer music. He just refused to admit that a home computer made this sound. That's one of the things about the Amiga, that sense of miracle, of wonder that came with it.
This was the do-it-yourself period. Post-punk. Everybody started a band, but we started an animation studio. For the first time in history, we could be a production studio. Making strips, making music, making animations, producing it, getting it out on tape, and delivering it at the broadcast station. We were in control of that, so it was super do-it-yourself.
And in Europe, the Amiga 500 was very successful there. We sold over 1 million Amiga 500s a year for a while.
Then was a launch also here in Germany. So a revolution. Everybody loves it, everybody likes it, and it was a success here.
There was a lot of room for that crazed individual to say, you know what this machine needs? This machine needs a piece of hardware that we can plug in, and we'll have cameras and light filters, and it's going to do this spectacular thing. There was room then for one person to say, I'm going to do that thing, and you've got a product on the shelf that people are buying.
I haven't seen the same kind of just opportunity for weirdness and enthusiasm and unbridled energy since then.
We wanted to change the world. We wanted to make the best computer. To make a computer better, it has to be better for the consumer. It has to not be just more complicated. It has to be easier to use, less work, and do more for you, and all that kind of stuff.
The first year that the Amiga was out, the Amiga outperformed the Apple Macintosh. It outperformed it in sales, it outperformed it in user satisfaction.
And here comes this thing that just demolishes what we think a home computer can do. It just completely changed everything.
This was the first time where people could create the kind of media that they were watching on television.
So if you wanted to do anything that was multimedia oriented, you were doing it on an Amiga.
A lot of different people did a lot of different things. Some people were doing 3D modeling on it. If you go to the movies these days, you're probably going to see some CGI. That was giving people a tool they had never had before.
Video capabilities beyond compare.
I had Deluxe Video, which I think came out in 1986, which is kind of amazing when you think about, a video production program on your home computer in 1986.
Graphics. There was a program that came out pretty early called Deluxe Paint that allowed you to draw on screen, but because you could see a whole lot more colors than on a PC, there was a whole generation of artists who found a use for computers they never would have had before.
The Amiga was an instrument, and like a good instrument, if it's a piano or a flute or a violin, you use the instrument to express yourself.
And the Amiga was like what the guitar was for Jimi Hendrix, we knew how to play it, and we could even play the Amiga like this.
I made lots of paintings with gradients and Digipaint. Digipaint was my favorite. I know most people are Deluxe Paint 2, Deluxe Paint 3 aficionados, but I was a Digipaint girl.
Amiga was marketed as a computer for creative people.
Aren't you astronauts?
Buzz Aldrin, Gordon Cooper, Scott Carpenter. We like to compare notes with Stevie on the new space station.
Hello?
Hi, Tommy Lasorda for Stevie.
Hey, what's up?
Just a question about moving random to the number 2 position.
Yeah, second, and this'll work. It's perfect.
Hi.
Hi.
We're the Pointer Sisters. Stevie's expecting us.
Well, come in.
We need help with our new album.
Burt Bacharach, Little Richard.
The Amiga. Color, sound, graphics, power. At a price to make it truly the computer for the creative mind. What can the Amiga do? Well, what do you want it to do?
Mr. O'Neill. Stevie is upstairs, but it's kind of crowded. Would you like some fried chicken while you're waiting?
Amiga from Commodore, the computer for the creative mind.
Then, everything changes with the toaster. This plug-in card turned your Amiga into such a powerful video creation system that you could run an honest-to-goodness professional organization on them.
There's never been anything like it. The world's first video workstation. That's what it is. Putting the power of video in the hands of the people. People like you and me.
The Video Toaster was created to be an all-in-one desktop production studio. We shipped it in 1990, and the Amiga computer is what made it possible.
Video communication just was not available to the average guy. The Video Toaster changed all that.
It really leveled the playing field. That all of a sudden, your stuff could look as pro as something on broadcast television because it was, in fact, creating work in the same quality.
And back in the day, before the Video Toaster, you really had to be a member of the priesthood to have access to the kinds of tools that you could use. You had to be working at a TV station or working for a big production house, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars.
And that thing, at that point, you were like, the Amiga is a audio-visual editing computer.
It was astonishing. And what's funny is that when I became a teacher, and I would show other teachers in other departments this tool, and say like, hey, you know, instead of buying this titling machine for $5,000, why don't you buy one of these toasters for the same money, and instead of having 6 fonts, you can have 600, and add more, and have all this other stuff. And the thing I was faced with was that, well, you know, computers are nice, but they're not going to be a real important part of TV and film.
There's a lot of material to look at and not much time to do it in. So pull up your VCR and your toaster and let's get started.
You know, New Tech back in the day, you know, had a tiger by the tail with the Video Toaster. I mean, nobody really expected the Video Toaster to be that successful, except probably New Tech.
New Tech.
Now look at what they've brainstormed. The Video Toaster.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Penn Jillette. This is my partner, Teller. We're Penn and Teller, and we're here to talk about taste. We're making this video all by ourselves in a loft in Topeka, Kansas, using cheap home equipment and a new item, New Tech's Video Toaster. This little snazzy gizmo puts all the power in your hands. But if you don't exercise taste, you're going to end up with a video full of solarization, mosaics, receding tiles, and everything else under the sun. In short, you're going to have a finished product that looks like a bad rock video.
After we shipped it, it was just kind of an explosion. I realized that with personal computer technology, at some point, it would be fast enough to do all those things. We set out to revolutionize video, and I think we did it. I knew it was a good thing, but we were all shocked when we started shipping the toaster how many people wanted it.
The following that you have for Apple these days is the kind of religious zealots that we had following the Amiga. They were absolutely convinced that this was the next platform, and everyone was super psyched.
The wild-eyed, the excited, the crazed, gotta create inventive things, gotta do fun stuff, gotta go out and change the world stuff.
Because you weren't just a person who bought an Amiga, you kind of bought into Amiga. And that became your life, and I have to admit, I was on board with that.
Hi everyone, I'm Bohush Blahut. You might recognize me from the Catalyzer series of tutorial videos put out by Legacy Maker. This tape is a
Whenever I could name drop the Amiga, like, oh, I use an Amiga, or I'm still using an Amiga, I would.
Because if you've ever met an Amiga fan, he's going to tell you all about the Amiga and how everybody else got it wrong.
Amiga users make Macintosh users look like IBM users.
It's like you are the secret keeper of this great secret, and you don't understand how no one else has found out, and you kind of want to spread it. But more than anything, you just want to tell people, look, I've got this knowledge.
I actually moved from my dream job, bartending on Waikiki Beach, to move to Silicon Valley so I could find a job working with the Amiga.
If you were a creative guy, if you were a computer geek, this was it. This was Nirvana.
Everything was new and open, and people were just trying to do really cool stuff. And a lot of them didn't even care, you know, they weren't trying to make money off of it. They were just saying, hey, look at this neat hack I came up with. And they'd send out the source code. And then you'd get it and say, well, look, hey, I can change it and do this.
You know, you didn't get a lot of people that were striving to become millionaires. You got a lot of people that were striving to find a way to express themselves or to create tools that would allow other people to express themselves in new and fascinating ways.
When I was working on Amiga hardware, I also wrote Amiga software just for fun.
It's sort of like a Elks Club of computer users. Once you're inside, you know, there is a special kind of camaraderie. Like if I was to find somebody who is, you know, a diehard Amiga user just on the street, we'd talk for a half hour or an hour about the Amiga. I know we would. Because if you're into it, it's the greatest thing in the world when you find somebody else who's into it.
It's true, but you gotta get one of those. We have our summer picnic.
There had been a lot of fears, and Commodore had had a bad year, probably the worst year ever. For Christmas of 1993, the machines that people wanted were not available, and the ones that were out were not selling. We were nervous, and we knew something bad was probably going to happen before too long.
Most companies that are in the consumer electronics marketplace, they do their trial balloons at CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show in January. They take orders in June for whatever's going to be the hot thing that Christmas. If you screw up Christmas in the consumer electronics industry, you are dead. Most people only get like one shot at that before they die. We actually had 2 shots at that.
There was a couple of years where CEO and chairman were making more money at Commodore than the CEO of IBM, CEO of Apple, and we weren't doing anywhere near the business. No matter what Commodore had done, we wouldn't have been able to keep that going forever.
A lot of us had a feeling that something was wrong at Commodore.
We knew the PC and Windows had taken over the market. We knew there wouldn't be an Amiga 5000.
When the news arrived that they were going bankrupt, I mean, it's the worst case scenario.
It was devastating. It was devastating for us because our whole business was, at that time, was based on the success of the video toaster. And the success of the video toaster was based on the Amiga. Then we were just mired in the horror of it. I was in shock, and I really couldn't figure out how we were going to survive it.
You know, my wife says it's kind of like I was in a divorce for a while because I was like into all these stages of denial. Was it something that I did? You know, blah, 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 blah.
There's not one single thing I could have done to change the outcome. And I reviewed that over and over again because technical people love the idea that there's a technical fix to something. But the problems with Commodore were not technical, they were managerial. and there's nothing we could have done.
We were trying desperately as engineers in the company to try and find somebody that would acquire us, buy us. But unfortunately, none of that was to be had.
I never did really understand why the Amiga wasn't more successful. We often blame the marketing people, and I think there was a lot of room there to blame the marketing people.
Marketing is like a big jigsaw puzzle. It's a whole bunch of pieces you got to put together the right way, otherwise the picture doesn't look very good.
They did some wacky things. If you have never seen the first launch commercial for the Amiga computer, you ought to go see it if you'd like a laugh. There's a monitor on a pedestal and the light is glowing and the baby is born and it's glowing in the light of the amazing monitor glowing Amiga. What the hell was that? Is what most people were left like, what did that mean? And sadly, that first commercial set the trend for what marketing would prove to be like for that machine over the first several years.
I mean, dollar for dollar, nothing can even come close to the Amiga 3000. By the way, how are we coming on the Liquid Scrubbo presentations?
I beg your pardon?
You know. Oh, I guess I didn't introduce myself. I'm Bob Lewis, the new VP Marketing.
They wanted to sell to business. That was a little tough because it looked so awesome. It's very hard for what essentially seems like a combination of a jukebox and a music video channel to claim that it's really good for business. Atari had the same problem.
In the United States, instead of putting the Amiga 500 into Toys R Us or Kmart or Sears, we put it into professional computer stores because we brought in folks from Apple that knew how to take a Macintosh at the time and sell that for about $2,500. So they were thinking, hey, we know how to sell, high-end computers. I didn't design a high-end computer. This is a $500 game machine. Please put it in Toys R Us. I can still remember the Apple guy putting his arm around my shoulder saying, Jeff. Had this discussion with Steve. I'm having it with you. Don't worry. I'll take care of your baby. Rolling my eyes there.
The PR department of Commodore talking about Amiga was all about the art. They were like, we are the artist's computer. I mean, this is a company that hired Andy Warhol to draw on an Amiga in front of a crowd of people to show you how awesome it was and how it was perfect. And they had B.B. King talking about how he's going to use an Amiga to make music from now on. And so they were like, let's get established artists we can afford and have them stand next to Amiga so you can be as cool as that artist. And IBM, which had given up itself to clones, ended up winning that game because, here you go, boring, dependable, made by a bunch of people, will be here next year. And they ground everybody else down.
I think that Amiga could have had a different future if they would have focused on what they were good at. This machine, this do-it-yourself machine for the graphical artists.
Right.
And I'm sure that new things would have come out of that, and they tried to be PC. You should never try to be something that you are not.
But even if sales in the US were zero, Commodore still would have lived, because the other 90% of the revenue was from the rest of the world that did figure out that this was the next generation.
With the right software support, I don't see any reason why we couldn't have garnered a much larger market share and maintained it.
I have very little love for Commodore as an organization. It's like finding out a guy who constantly shot himself in the foot finally got it amputated.
If you don't market it right, and if you waste all your money on air freight and miss timing and things like this, not much you can do.
I never saw a Commodore that had a central leader or anyone who felt like a leader. At Apple, everyone knew Jobs was in charge. At Commodore, it really wasn't clear who was in charge.
The waste, the mismanagement, the terrible decisions that just ruined things. It's endemic. The patient's terminal. It's living in spite of them.
The product actually never failed. The people around it, the companies around it, those were the people that failed. If it would have had a Steve Jobs running it instead of a Tom Radigan.
It was about brand loyalty, it was about marketing, and those are the things that Commodore did badly. I think that they didn't know how to market it. Like, how do you market a multimedia machine before multimedia exists? It would have revolutionized things earlier, quite a bit earlier. You know, I guess that's ultimately the tragedy of the Amiga.
Being part of the Amiga community and an insider, I kept following what was going on.
2 weeks from now, there's going to be some great announcement about somebody coming along to buy the Amiga assets, and that went on for years.
Intellectual property was basically sold to a PC company out of Germany called SCOM.
And SCOM was the second largest PC company in Europe. They contacted both myself and Andy Finkel and invited us over to talk with them about what they wanted to do with the future of the Amiga technology.
One of the personalities that most defined the period of great uncertainty was Petro Tashenko.
Introduction also. I talked in English. And then
Petro was a former Commodore Germany executive who was brought in by SCOM as one of the directors of their Amiga Technologies division.
They resurrected the Amiga 1200 line and they resurrected the Amiga 4000T line.
And the people were very happy, right? Because we have no break. There was a shortage, of course, of A1200s during the bankruptcy. But then suddenly A1200 could be delivered, right? This was great for everybody and for the dealers as well. So the community was satisfied, the dealers were satisfied, the business was running, and it was a great time.
And Petro was in so many ways exactly what Amiga users had been asking for. He cared about Amiga users. Finally, they want to be our friends. They want to listen to us. They want to sit down to dinner with us. Petro was Santa Claus. He would hand out Amiga branded pens and pins and mouse pads. He had a dance band that would come and perform at Amiga shows. Petro was great.
And, you know, for a little while, things looked good.
They later went out of business because they didn't manage their inventory too well in the PC marketplace, and, you know, it basically fizzled on the vine.
There was a bunch of, you know, hot potato stuff going on.
In spring of 1997, Gateway acquires the Amiga assets from the leftover shell of ESCOM.
Gateway didn't really care about the Amiga. Ultimately, they just didn't do anything with the operating system, and they ended up licensing it to this tiny little group of people out in Washington State. The Amiga people kept holding out hope for year after year after year that something better was going to come along from a real company. They kept lowering their expectations. It's like the woman who wants to marry, and when she's 20, she's looking at the movie star, and, you know, by the time she's 50, the guy with the bald hair and the potbelly looks pretty good.
I kept thinking, the Amiga's gonna rise again, and it's gonna be the real Amiga. It's gonna be the 68,000 platform or the PowerPC 603 platform, and it's gonna have this like organic connection to the Amiga of old.
There have been a variety of attempts to bring Amiga-like hardware back.
The many heirs to the Amiga legacy.
And they have pretty much all failed.
Even after Commodore was gone, they clung to it. It was a way of life, I think, for a lot of people.
Das ist Peter Tischenko, Northwest Amiga Group, ne? Live member.
Instead of going, I suppose like most people my age would have been to a modern computer, you know, like, you know, an IBM clone of some kind, I saved up all my money, went to softhut.com in 2000, and purchased a brand new, in-box, new old stock Amiga 1200 HD Magic Pack. When software developers really started falling off the wayside and when games really stopped being developed, it was about, how can I keep this going? What hacks can I use to solve this problem? It was also like, look, this thing, it can still do things in 2004, in 2005. It wasn't until 2005 that the Amiga 1200 stopped being my main computer.
And when I started, there's no way I thought I'd be involved in producing new hardware for the Amiga in 2010. We're now ready to introduce the Amiga 1X1000. The X1000 was developed by Amigans for Amigans. All of the software guys involved have been Amiga users and Amiga developers, you know, for the last 20 years.
There are people who say that, oh, for the Amiga to be truly great, it should die, and that everyone will think of it as a classic. But I've never felt that way. I keep thinking it should keep on progressing, it could keep going further.
We're running Amiga OS 4. If you pick it up and start using it, you feel like you're using an Amiga operating system. We have beta testers from 22 countries around the world. It wasn't 40,000, but we thought, well, yes, it might be 40,000.
You're fighting such a integrated industry now that I don't know if there's any room for a third computer company. But they keep trying because, man, if you're the third computer company and you're actually a success, you are making bank. So they do it.
If I was to be totally honest, the Amiga 1X1000 is not a commercial venture. It's a love of my life. I've put a lot of money, time, and effort into this project, which I will not get back.
What people want is the same aesthetic and engineering quality and freedom to bring the best of what silicon and metal have to offer to the computer industry. That's what they want.
I'm really, really proud with the hardware we've produced. I just hope that the Amiga community will enjoy it as much as I'm going to when I get mine. Let's keep this party going, as we say on the board.
Because we use computers so much, our identity becomes connected with the computer system we use. Like, you become a Windows person, you become a Mac person, you become an Amiga person, you become an Atari XL person, a Linux person. IBM is this big market player, is this big, we sell to corporations, we run the supercomputers of the world. Oh, you play games, you're an Amiga user, you're a Macintosh user, you think you're creative. You're part of that. You become part of that idea.
The more you find that this thing, whatever it is the thing that pushes your buttons, the more likely you are to stick through it through thick and thin. And we had people who just kept believing. And I mean, there's still people who just keep believing.
The feeling with Amiga is that the human being is in the middle and the Amiga is around. If the PC is in the middle, and you have to do what the PC is telling you.
We were trying to take on Microsoft and IBM, but we didn't actually see ourselves as competitors with that machine because we saw that machine as the machine that wore the suit and tie, whereas our machine would be the one that wore the colorful ascot and the beanie and would, be the machine that people were really comfortable using, not the one that they would have to dress up and go to work to use.
People don't so much have computers as a hobby anymore. When I got started, I had a Commodore PET and a VIC-20 and a Commodore 64. I had the whole lineup, right? And this was I was tinkering. It was a hobby for me. I don't know that people really consider a computer a hobby. It's more of an appliance. It's a way to do other stuff. So, it's a way to read email and surf the web and all this other kind of stuff.
I don't care what PC it is. If it's a little faster, I'll change a few boards in mine, and a regular person would probably go out and buy a new one. But you've got no emotional attachment whatsoever to that computer. It's just a tool. I've got a bunch of hammers, and I use this hammer for this and this hammer for that. But and I have some really good hammers. I've got one I've owned for 30 years, and it's a great hammer. But if I lost it, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It wasn't just a tool. It was part of something bigger.
We were so young and naive and innocent. It really felt like we could change the world. We could make a better place for us all to live.
I think there's this feeling of like something that was lost, something that you can't get back.
My name's Cetrix, I'm from Australia, and I write music on a Commodore Amiga.
Quality suit for the man who is thrifty. Fabrics are nifty, only $54.50.
Blipfest is a festival here in New York City, and it's been going now for a fair number of years. And it's basically a showcase of a whole load of chip artists from around the globe. Chiptune music is the art, I guess, of taking a games console or a computer console from the days when they made their own sound, the blips and the bloops. Before you had, just a full CD quality soundtrack. And you take those old machines and try to write music for them. Within that restriction is the beauty of trying to make a track and get it within the constraints. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I love the machine. It sounds amazing for its age and its vintage. For a machine that was from 1984 that has the capability that it has, it's just absolutely incredible.
Matthew Simmons, otherwise known as Format, and I'm a chip musician. The Amiga computer was one of the first times that cheap, multi-track sampling was available to the masses. Because once the Amiga 500 came out, it was like 300 quid, and every kid who wanted to make DJ mixes or sort of hip-hop tracks could just go out and get an Amiga for their Christmas present. So without the Amiga, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
My current alias is Stage Diver. Tonight I am using two Amiga 1200s. One of them has been modified heavily. The entire project is Amiga-based. The Amiga has this sort of personality. You turn it on and you become a part of it. It demands your attention. You tell it what to do. It does it very well. And all under, 2 megabytes. And when I first discovered the Amiga, I really realized that I can use these computers that I saw in school in a way that I wanted, and made these awful noises that piss off my parents. And, I mean, really, it's hard nowadays to piss off your parents.
It's hard to even say what an Amiga is today.
We've all got our own ideas, and we're all going in different directions, and it's very difficult. Someone said it's like corralling a group of cats. I don't know.
Is there like a spirit in the OS that we can keep following? Or is it supporting old games and old apps? Is that it? I don't know.
They still develop software for it. They still develop hardware for it. So it's not fully dead either. It's still alive. It's still going.
Is it supporting the kind of people that still like the Amiga? Maybe.
And to me, it's just about love.
It's the camaraderie. I like talking to the people. What is it? Networking with the people face to face. Last year, within the last few months, 3 or 4 new user groups have popped up in the Pacific Northwest area.
It's about the community, the people you meet, the friendships that you create with Amiga users all over the world.
Still to this day, 2-3 times a month, I'll get a piece of email, a letter from someone thanking me for the Amiga computer, and he or she became a graphic artist or got into video production or got into game programming because of the Amiga, and that they were inspired by the capabilities and they were caught up in the passion.
There's people still using Amigas now, and there's people even buying new hardware that runs new Amiga operating system.
Like everything else, you have a whole bunch of software that perhaps wasn't worth the paper it was packaged in. But you have so many others that you play them now. You'll put them up on the screen and you'll be like, wow. And somebody will say, wow, you really captured that classic look. And you go, no, that is the classic look.
But man, those were special days. Those were such magical days. And that, I hope I get to enjoy again and again and again.
We know it can be done. We know that we can create a computer that blows people away. So let's do it again.
I'm RJ Michael, and I single-handedly invented the Amiga computer.
No, I didn't wear this tie just for you. I wear this tie every year.
That's me! This is the man.
This is not even B-roll, it's C-roll.
So many things about the Amiga that made you proud were little things. Like, you can store 880 kilobytes on a double density floppy disk, and those PC users, they can only store 720 kilobytes. And you can store 1.76 megabytes on a high density floppy disk, and they can only store 1.44.
Yeah, I think it's probably good.
You feel good?
Probably a wrap, yeah.
I feel real good.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
All right.